Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Bridging Impact Podcast, the podcast that is passing wisdom to the next generation of athletes, coaches, and parents to talk about the impact that sports has on our lives. And in today's episode, I interview a former teammate of mine on a championship team from my senior year and his junior year, Geronimo Zuniga. Geronimo is now the founder of the Local Mow Man, a business in Northern California that does tree services and mows lawns. In our episode today, we talk about the discipline it takes to be a great athlete and then a great businessman, and then also a lot of other memories and life lessons that we have taken from sports, specifically Geronimo, and now has turned into helping him create Local Mow Man into $1 million business. Without further ado, let's dive in. Hello and welcome to the Bridging Impact Podcast, GMO, our first recording of the year 2023. No better person to start with. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, brother. Appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Of course. So we're doing a little bit of a pivot here in 2023 in terms of our focus. We are super focused on really creating a lot of great content for pretty much just coaches and parents, but now we're kind of opening up the podcast to be a little bit more casual, conversational. And so with that, I want to really focus it on the impact sports has have on our lives. And for those that are listening, Gmo will be able to talk about it in a better way than I will, but he's really been able to take a lot of life lessons and skills he took from baseball to be a successful business entrepreneur at the age of, you're 23, right?
Yep, 23 and a half.
23 and a half. So it's going to be a really impactful episode. So, the first question I'll ask is I'd love for you to share your, experience with baseball. When did you start playing? And, when did you start playing?
Yeah, I started when I was 5 years old. I remember hitting it off the tee with my dad over at Ridgewood School. And I stuck with baseball most of my career, played up all the way into college, went to American River College in Sacramento, where I played at a junior college. And then intermittently, we had played, I think I had done wrestling 1 year in high school and then football 3 years in high school. But yeah, I've been playing since I was a kid. Now my career's over and I'm in the business world. My way of relaxing is when softball season starts up. I like to get out there on the field and crush some softballs.
Yeah, I love it. So with that, it sounds like you started when you're 5. You got a little bit of experience playing other sports, wrestling and football. Can you describe what your high school experience was like playing baseball? I mean, obviously that's something that we share, but we had some really special moments. Can you talk about, kind of the highs and lows and finding yourself in those moments?
Yeah, for me, I think my career and my love for the game really took off when I got to high school. When you're on little league teams and Babe Ruth teams, most of the time you're only playing with those players for a season. Especially coming in as a freshman on varsity, I got to play with like you for 3 years, and so it shaped me a lot. I know when I was 13 years old, we played for the traveling team together. And I was a 13-year-old going up against 18 and 19-year-olds. So It was definitely a humbling experience. And I remember one of the first lessons that I learned, and this this has helped me out a lot in life. One of the first lessons that I learned was from Tom Souza. And Tom Souza would always constantly give me advice. He was a 19-year-old guy, and I was 13 at the time. I was young. And I remember he would constantly give me advice, and I'd say, I know. Well, one day he got fed up with me, and he was tired of me saying that. And so he said, no, you don't know. And he started yelling at me. He said, you don't know everything. He's like, you need to learn to humble yourself. And from that point on, I've never said, I know ever again. And so it's always like, it kind of gave me a wake up call, and it reminded me that I need to respect my elders. I need to respect my teammates, respect my coaches. And obviously, I wasn't at the top of my game yet. I wasn't even close. But that was kind of like that was kind of wake up call for me entering high school, and then starting my freshman year was I think I ended up playing with Tom Souza. He was there our freshman year, or did he graduate?
Nah, he's even old. I never even played high school baseball with him. He was
Oh,
even older.
really?
Yeah.
Well,
So
I know we had played with you and some of the other seniors at the time.
yeah, we were a young team that year. We were a really young team, and I'm curious, because I know you're a lefty pitcher, right?
Yeah,
Troy Gazzetti. For those that are listening, he's our varsity coach. He loves lefty pitchers,
yeah,
right? So he's coming in, he's bringing in this new guy from Eureka. No one knows, who is this guy, right? Like
yeah,
he's coming in, we're already a young team, right? Because Gma was talking about we're playing 19U teams, and
yeah,
I'm only a year older than Gma. So what? I was 14 at the time, right?
yeah,
And all we got
yeah,
is Souza, who you're talking about, who's 4 years older than me, 5 years older than you, and one other guy. And so it was kind of interesting being on that team. I'm curious what it was like for you to come over from Eureka High to Arcata, and really
yeah,
probably be kind of on your own to start and finding your
yeah.
own way. I'm sure it was probably challenging, and that's a tough time to be doing that as well. Just like when you're that age, you want to fit in so
Mm.
bad.
Yeah, well, that's a good question actually, because that didn't, it didn't. It was a bad time, especially as a young kid entering high school, where you want to fit in with the crowd, and then you're moving into this whole different town with these whole different type of people that you've never grown up with
Right.
before. I didn't handle it very well. I remember more often than not, I was coming home crying after school because I just didn't have any friends. I was eating lunch all by myself. I remember I was so embarrassed to be alone. I would just we behind the science building over there by the dumpsters. I would just go sit between the cars and eat my lunch because I didn't want anyone to see me eating alone. For whatever reason, I was self-conscious about that at the
Right.
time. I don't know
Right.
why, you know. But one of the first people that I had been friends with was Squirrel from our traveling team. So Squirrel was on our traveling team when I was 13, before I entered high school. Then I played baseball with him my freshman year. And Squirrel would take me out to lunch every now and then. And I didn't find out till later, like my junior or senior year, that Troy had talked to Squirrel and said, "Hey, this kid's gonna leave me. You need to start being his friend." So,
That's
um,
funny.
yeah. So Squirrel would take me out to lunch every now and then, and my freshman year was like I didn't have any friends, and I didn't develop my social skills yet. I still had a lot of insecurities, and so baseball was the only thing that I really felt comfortable in. I would say those first 2 years of high school, freshman and sophomore year, and that's kind of where I built my foundation from, was being around those guys, and that was where I felt in my element. I remember when baseball season started up in the springtime, um, my freshman year. It was like a breath of fresh air because it was like okay, it's finally paying off. Like the first whatever 4 or 5 months of
Right.
school, I'm here suffering every single day, and then after school it was like for my time to unwind and breathe a little bit. And so um, yeah, that was my experience.
I think that's a really good perspective for if the coaches that are listening to this to have their players and their leaders like Squirrel to go and make sure that the new transfers feel comfortable with wherever they are, because it is challenging to move to a new situation, a new place, and baseball is an interesting sport, right? Because it's not football in the fall where you can probably make some friends like right at the beginning of the year. It's not even basketball
Yeah.
where it's in the middle of the year when it's winter and it's raining. It's all the way in the spring where it's like you said, 4 to 5 months before you can really start
Mhm.
like connecting and building friendships with people in your first year. And that's really hard. So I think that's a really good perspective for coaches to have and for athletes and other people. I'm curious, as you kind of went along, obviously, as I've been able to watch you, your confidence has grown significantly from when I first met you and
Yeah.
until your senior year of baseball. So I'd love for you to share a little bit more about the journey that you had as a player and really as a person, through those 4 years of being an athlete at Arcata High.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is just having the will. to keep continuing,
Mm.
to stick in it. One of the things my father taught me, and I've learned this through sports, is not only number one discipline. We can get into that later, but two is just integrity, being a man of your word.
Hmm.
We when you say you're going to do something, when you commit to doing
Yep.
something, you follow through with that. And I remember some of the first conversations with my dad when I was 5 years old was, if you're going to play this sport this year, you're going to stick through it, and you're not going to quit. And so, being in an uncomfortable situation like Arcata High School as a freshman starting out, one of the only things that kept me going that I didn't know at the time was my integrity. And
Hmm.
the fact that I said that I was going to do something, I was going to follow through with it, no matter how bad that it hurt me when I was a young kid. And so, um, just having that, I think, at the forefront and the core of my personality really helped develop me as a person. Um, your question was, one more time on the question. It was, how did our kid high develop me?
Just talk about your experience and your growth and development as a person, through sports.
Yeah, yeah. So I would say that would be the core of my character, would be my integrity. I would say it wasn't until about sophomore or junior year when Tex Keith, who he ended up playing on the baseball team with us senior year, um, he or my junior year, your senior year, he started introducing me to weightlifting, and that really changed my not only my high school experience but my performance out on the field. It gave me a lot more confidence in my abilities. I performed better. I was healthier. I was more prepared for baseball, which again, that's my flow state, right? That was where I was most
Hmm.
comfortable in throughout my career, and so being able to excel better in that field gave me more confidence all the way around. So by the time sophomore, junior year hit, um, you know, I felt more confident, more comfortable in my field.
Yeah, you were much stronger. I mean, it's definitely like it makes all the difference in the world between the weight room and not being in the weight room. It doesn't matter what sport you play, whether it's basketball or baseball or soccer, right? You're just much more, like physically adept and capable of doing and performing and executing the skills of the sport. So you talked about, kind of the flow state. And I'm curious, how you have translated a flow state from baseball to now
Mm.
being a business owner.
Yeah. Well, the nice part about baseball is it's pretty slow paced,
Right.
and
Right.
the nice part about nice part about being in the outfield too is like you got a lot of time to think. So,
Yeah.
and not a whole lot of
And we
people
have
got to.
a really good
Um,
pitching staff. So we were standing around a lot.
yeah, 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 yeah. So, it's like, um, there's just something about sports when you love sports a lot. You get focused, you get in the game, and for me in business is I have found my strengths and I've found my weaknesses, and so I put things in place to take over those weaknesses so that I can focus on my strengths. And so I'm always in my flow state. If I'm not good at answering the phone, then I'll hire somebody to answer the phone. If I'm not good at technology, I'll hire somebody who's good at technology so that I can focus on what I'm best at. And
Hmm.
so for me is like, my flow state is the same as it was in baseball. I like time to think. I like time to plan. I like time uh, to work on my goals, and then I create a team around me, and I consider myself the coach. I put a team around me that can help me execute those goals. Yeah. So.
Yeah, we were talking the other night, and then you were talking about how you have become the
Yeah,
coach. I want to talk about. I want to kind of like rewind a little bit to go to, for those that are
yeah.
listening, like, what is the business that you have started, and how did you execute to a certain point to where you are today?
Yeah, so I didn't have a team, right? When I first started, it was just
Right.
myself. So we own a landscaping company, the largest landscape company in our area, and we take care of probably close to 29 families or so, which is a considerable size business in this area. Um, and I remember starting with a small beat up truck,
Yep.
that I
Yep.
couldn't get over 30 miles an hour, and now we've got 10 or 11 vehicles out here, and then two companies. And so obviously I didn't have myself, or I didn't have my team when I first started. It was just myself. So going back to that discipline that you learned in sports, going back to when you start something, you see it through, right? You just
Mm-hmm.
find a way to make it work. That's it. Those are all skills that I learned from a young age, and then Arcata High School, or high school baseball reinforced that for us. And so I applied a lot of those same principles in business. And I think it's one of the greatest things that happened to me. I think a lot of people, they grow up not playing sports, and they don't develop those core values that you need to be, not necessarily a responsible adult, but just someone who like I said, has the values, has the integrity, has the motivation to see things through. Maybe when things aren't going their way. So, there were a lot of long nights. Like for the first year, I was working from 5 a.m. to 11 p.m. And if it wasn't for that vision and that goal that I'd set out for myself, there would be nothing else that would have kept me going. And there's no way I would have been able to develop that on my own. That's from the 15 and 16 years of preparation before that business, which was me playing sports throughout my entire life. So um, now as we've grown, I've helped develop that team one person at a time, and just bringing on the right team members to put in the right position, and now we're a championship team. So
Yeah, no, I'd love for you to kind of go back and again, talk about, you have a championship team now, right? You're the coach now. But what did you learn from our championship team, your junior year, my senior year, that you talked about the discipline, you talked about kind of the
yeah,
teamwork and some of the like life skills, and what were your favorite memories, and what were those lessons that you learned from that specific year?
yeah. So what were we, 23-4, I think, that year,
Yeah, something like that. All I know
something
is we
like
got a
that.
ring.
Yeah, we do. Yeah, we had a couple rings that year. Um, Yeah, it's I would say one of the biggest things, like looking back on that year, was everyone had a job,
Hmm.
and everybody executed their own job. And
That's interesting.
it was interesting because we had seniors, we had freshmen, we had sophomores, we had juniors, but I don't know if you knew this, but or I'm sure you picked up on this, but when you were given the bun sign, you were given the bun sign and you executed it. Plain and
Right.
simple. Like
Right.
like you found a way to get it done. And every single time in that year, we found a way to get it done. If you were first and third and you need to get the guy over to second base, like you'd hit it in the four hole no matter what. And
Right.
it's just what you did. And so I think there was this sort of like accountability around each other, and accountability and also trust too, where we sacrificed ourselves for the
Mm.
greater good of our team. And a lot of it was we played the small game. And if we needed to get people in scoring position, then somebody would sacrifice themselves. And then the person behind them that had to hit those guys in would take on the responsibility and get the job done. So A lot of it was accountability. A lot of it was trust in each other. And, that was one of the most well connected teams that I've been a part of, just
Yeah.
because we didn't have to we didn't have to communicate to each other what needed to be done. We already knew what needed to be done, and everybody, when you talk about that flow state, everybody was in the flow state every single game. We were extremely focused.
Yeah, it's actually
So
really a really good point and a really good way of putting it because we weren't a team of just mashers, right? We had great
no,
pitching and we had great fundamentals of, because we won our championship game off of like they made errors on our bunts. You know what I mean? Like,
correct,
so
correct.
like we just put the ball in play, we put them in a position to make plays and they didn't make the plays. Like we were the ones that
Hmm.
put the pressure on other teams. And I think that's kind of a fun way of looking at it. And with that, now that you're talking about kind of the execution aspect of it as a business owner now, has that, how do you as the coach now help your team execute the skills that they need to?
Yeah. So, one of the things Troy always told us, he'd always say it's not that hard, right?
Figure
And so, yeah, figure it out. It's not that hard.
it out.
So, I can't tell you how many times I've said that to my team, from when I was in the field to now I'm in the office, and I'm now managing you could say my team captains, or these are my leadership team. And so, I keep things stupid simple. Life's not that hard. Life's not that difficult. Can't take everything so seriously. So one of the things that's helped our business grow is we keep things very simple. We keep things by the book, right? We don't wave from that. When you've got a person on first and third and you're the two hitter, you want to bunt the guy over. That's it. Leave it for the three hole to hit him in. And so, everyone's got a job. We stick within our roles, and then we just get as good as we can in those areas, and then everything else is going to be taken care of. And I always tell everybody, I say, you just focus on what you do best, and everything else will be taken care of, because your teammate over here that's doing the other part of the job, he's been trained. He knows what he's doing in that area. You know what you're doing in your area. If you two come together and you work together, then we're gonna win. We're gonna win. We're gonna be a championship team. But it's the only way that's gonna happen is if we get on the same page, and if we really focus in on what we do best, which is, whatever your job role is at the company.
Right. Yeah. No. Executing that, putting the person in, either you're the person that puts them in a scoring position, or you're the person that knocks them in. I'm curious.
Correct.
As a coach now, as a boss, right? You sometimes have to have those uncomfortable conversations because I know for me, like when I'm working with young athletes, a lot of athletes they think they're right LeBron James or Mike Trout, right? When realistically,
Mm,
they're just a role player and they have to learn
mm.
how to be the person that bunts the person over, not the person that's going to hit them in. I'm curious if you've had some of those conversations with some of your employees on their roles and helping them kind of guide back into that.
Yeah, well, like I said, it comes down to character, right? So sometimes, like it's funny. I'll tell everybody in the company. I say I will hire somebody who has a good attitude over somebody who's the best landscaper, plain
Yeah.
and simple. Because I'm looking to build a team. I'm looking to build a culture. I'm not looking to build a championship team of guys that only care about themselves, which was one of the issues that we had in college, as well. And one of the reasons why I stopped playing baseball, because it wasn't enjoyable at that time, because everyone was all about themselves. Um, so, so first and foremost, we just won't bring somebody onto the team that doesn't have a good attitude and a good team building mindset. And so when you come in with that foundation, and everybody has, and that's their baseline, everybody wants to work together, it's a lot easier to motivate the team to hit the goal if they have that foundation. Because for the most part, if you've got a vision, you as a leader and as a coach have a vision of where you want to take your team, and you can find people that maybe don't have that exact vision, but they have a vision. You can fold them and morph them into filling whatever role that it is needed to complete the job. The second thing is about that is you find people that are good at those roles and that job. So, I'll never, if somebody's really, really good at mowing lawns, I'm not going to stick them on an irrigation job that they know nothing about, right?
Right.
So I'm going to put them where their skills are best. So I build a team that's big enough to where, if you're not good at mowing lawns, we're going to stick you on our tree service crew.
Right.
If you're not good at tree service, like we'll bring you into the office and you can come do estimates for us. So, we have built a team to where we can find people where they can be in their own flow state in our company and where they can perform best, which whatever role that is for them.
It kind of goes back to one of your earlier points that you were talking about for your self responsibility of like, I find what I'm good at, right? The planning aspect, setting goals, hitting goals, and then I hire out from there. It's the same thing as a coach, right? Like for me, I'm thinking about my basketball team, right? I'm not going to put my big guys who can't shoot on the corners and on the wings to just shoot. That's just like, it's not a recipe for a championship team, like you talk about. And also, you brought up a good
Mm,
point on hiring for attitude, right? And hiring for character versus hiring for skill
yeah.
and developing that skill once you have the right character on your team, because it's so important to make the hire to, be like for longevity, right? Because
Mm,
I had to cut a few guys who just like they came in with their beanies on, their headphones in, and it's just attitude. I'm like, nope, I don't want this. I don't need you.
yeah.
I got plenty of other people to choose from. Thank you for making my decision easy. And I want to
Yeah.
go back to what you were talking about a little bit before, and because I think this is one of the things that's really helped you become really successful in business is discipline, and that self-discipline
Mm,
to really make sure that you're taking action every day. Because as an athlete, if you want to get better, you have to be disciplined in your process of getting better every day, like in the weight room.
mm,
And then now as a business owner, right? No one's in charge of you, right? You have to show up
yeah.
every single day. So how did you cultivate that self-discipline?
Yeah. Good question. Um, how did I cultivate that self-discipline? That is a great question. I think honestly, a lot of it was just instilled in me from when I was a child,
Hmm.
so innately, it just kind of became part of who I am. Not only that, but growing up with a lot of the core values that my father taught me, of being disciplined and seeing things through to the end. I would say, how did my discipline get developed? Um, I thought about this question actually a couple weeks ago, and I think maybe some of it was luck in a way. Um, our junior year when we developed a championship team, and I started going to the gym, I started lifting weights. Um, a lot of that, I wouldn't say a lot of that happened by chance, but it was like we were all there at the right time. We all got to be a part of that. We all got to experience that. When you're a part of a championship team like that, like we were, where people executed and they showed up and they did their job, like that's a it's a once in a lifetime experience, really. It's extremely hard to replicate that. And so a lot of it I kind of chop up to luck in a way of everyone was just there at the right time. And that, us being a championship team and us going through so many different adversities during that year for us, and so many big games where people had to step up to the plate and execute, like yourself on that Kelseyville
Hmm.
game. That creates the discipline right there. That creates the work ethic. It's games like that do that, or seasons like that do that to a person. They make an impact for you, for the rest of your
Yeah.
life, because you see the other side now, right? You see what it's like when you work every single day and you actually get a result from that.
Hmm.
And so when I see that and I know, and that makes me feel a certain way, and I like the way that makes me feel, I've seen it now. So now,
Right.
now I've seen it and I've been a part of it. I can now replicate that. And so that, again, going back to the flow state, that's, I'm doing that in my own business now. As now I'm trying to create that championship team. I'm trying to replicate that same feeling again. So, honestly, I'd say, a lot of it was luck. A lot of it was the way I was brought up. How do I maintain my discipline now? Well, like I said, I've seen the other side. I know what it's done for my life being disciplined, and I've seen it compared to other people that have not applied discipline in their own life, whether they're kids starting out or whether they're adults, in the workforce. And I've seen a drastic difference in the quality of life in sports and outside of sports using discipline. So, I choose the latter. I choose to stick with it. I mean, it's made an impact in my life. It's changed me completely as a man, and so I couldn't see my life going any other way without discipline.
You bring up a really, really good point that once you kind of get that high, right, and of winning a championship like we did our junior senior year, you recognize what hard work can really produce. And you talk about that
Correct.
luck factor too, right? Like we could have all been are just as good, just work is just as hard. But if we were on other teams, thinking about specifically like a McKinleyville, someone with, for lack of a better term, a bunch of
Yeah.
goofballs. We'll just leave it at that. We wouldn't
Yeah.
have gotten the same results.
Goofballs.
we,
No.
we probably could use some other choice language on this, but like
Yeah.
our commitment, we got really lucky that we were all put together. And I think about that
Yeah.
all the time. I think about it from my like just parents' point of view, because you talked about your dad giving you those lessons. Like I've learned so much from my parents, and I've something I've been thinking about a lot is my like grandparents immigrating from Portugal at the time they did. My grandpa working his butt off in the lumber mills. Didn't speak a lick of English. Then I got my dad, who's
Yeah.
becoming a very successful businessman, owning a construction, doing well for himself, and putting me in positions of success. That's so much luck like coming my way. So I definitely
Hmm.
feel a similar thing
Yeah.
in terms of luck. And you've talked about your dad, teaching you some of these life lessons, and we're bridging impact. We're all about passing wisdom along, to the next generation. So I'm curious if you had any other, great teachers and coaches and mentors that have made a big impact on your life.
Yeah. So, I that's one thing I was going to say was like, again, you're saying you had a good upbringing. I'm saying I had a good upbringing. They instilled those core values in us. We
Right.
got lucky in a sense of having that. A lot of people don't have that, right? So, how do you still define those skills and acquire those skills if you don't have somebody that's giving that to you? That's where sports comes into play. That's where, I'd say almost every single one of my coaches that I've had has made that type of impact on me. In a way, any way I've taken something from those coaches and from those experiences that I had. Um, Almost every single coach has helped define me in one way or another. They've taught me something new. Um, all the way up from when I was 5 years old, those experiences to playing football, wrestling, playing baseball in college. I've taken something from everyone, and so that's why I'm such a huge advocate of sports because I believe that even if I didn't have those core values from my family, I probably would have still developed those from the sports because I've learned half of my lessons on the field than I have off the field as well. So um, yeah, all coaches, man. Troy Gazzetti, Bob Macham, my dad, he was a coach for me for some time. Todd Morris, I had him as a coach. I think my freshman year. Um, yeah, every single one of them.
Yeah, sports are one of the greatest teachers, and a lot of times it's teaching you how to navigate like loss, not in terms of like people and death, but in terms of just like losing and how to bounce back, how to respond, right, and how to stay
Mm,
connected and how to stay for lack of a better term, confident. Because in that year that we won sections, is we lost to Eureka in our the city championship game, and it was an extra inning game, and right, we could have folded right there, right, and a lot of people do fold, and I think that those are some of the great lessons of sports.
yeah, and going back to that too is like I don't know if you remember, but we lost our league game, but we still won our sections game.
Right.
And I don't know if you remember the conversation that we had after we lost our league game, but the conversation was, it's not over yet. We still have sections, right? So even though there might have been like a little bump in our path that we were heading on, and maybe we just got outside the lines a little bit too much, we still had that vision. We still had that goal that we were trying to achieve. It wasn't even over. It's like we could have just given up right there and said, "Oh, we lost the league championship. That's it." But then we went on to win sections. And why? Because it didn't phase us, right? We had a goal. We were there as a team. Like we understood what we were trying to accomplish, and that wasn't even part of the goal. That was secondary to what we were trying to accomplish. So yeah, yeah, it's a great point.
One of the things that that season presented was that opportunity you just talked about. And now as a business owner, I'm sure you've, especially early on, I'm guessing in the business, you've come with a lot of bumps and challenges. So how do you use that experience that we had to navigate a loss that stings, to keep going and stick with a plan and not just give up and fold your cards?
Um, when you have a large goal that you're trying to hit, I mean, I always say this. There's not that many things that will put a halt to your plans or to your business. Like there's not that many things that will affect you that much to where you've just got to throw in the towel. I mean, it's I've been in some sticky situations in my business since I began, but I've always reminded myself, like, it's not the end of the world. This might be a bump in the road for the next couple weeks. It might be a little bit stressful, but again, developing that willpower, developing that discipline, having the understanding that this isn't the end of the road, that this is just one little small hurdle for me to get over. I mean, life's not easy. You're always going to have hurdles, and if you don't find that out now, you're going to find that out later. And so, I just don't let it affect me. There's we've come up against pretty big problems in our business, and if you're solution based oriented and you focus on execution, those problems become minute pretty quickly when you start to sit down and brainstorm about how you can solve them, because 9 times out of 10 the solution's pretty easy and it's right there in front of you. You just got to execute.
No, it makes a ton of sense. I'm curious, you talked about, you know, executing and to being solution oriented as a problem solver and as a business owner. Do you seek out mentors or do you collaborate with your team? How do you typically, tackle those problems?
Yeah, before, when I was first starting out, I sought out a lot of mentors to kind of help build that foundation for me. I've noticed as I've gotten more advanced in my business acumen, I've noticed that I've learned to trust my own intuition a lot more. And I kind of stopped seeking mentors in that area. I have a few select that I go to for certain issues that come up in my business, but nobody knows your business, nobody knows your life, nobody knows yourself more than you do. So really learning to trust your gut and trust your intuition is huge. When you start to realize, and again, everyone has been told, like, trust your gut, and everybody knows that feeling of when you go against your gut when you should have done it and you didn't do it. So you kind of get stung enough times where it's like, okay, I've become resistant to it, and I learn to trust my intuition in every situation now. And I still get stung every now and then, but it's definitely more often than not I'm not. And so um, yeah, I'd say that's it.
That's a good point. It's like you kind of learn how to coach yourself. And as we kind of like enter the ninth inning, the last inning of this podcast, I'm curious, how has sports helped you, be able to coach yourself? Because it's kind of what I almost hear you talking about is like, when
Mm,
you're let's think about as in terms of business, right? Like when you first are starting, right? It's like, high school baseball, where you got a coach and you're seeking out coach. How can I, hit the ball better? How can I go 4-hole, 6-hole, hit the gaps? And, as you progress, right, you go to college baseball, you're probably in a point of it sounds like your business career where you're kind of more of like a pro or a college player where you just kind of have to manage yourself, right?
Correct. Yeah, the biggest thing that I've learned, and this has taken, years to develop, but I've been intentional about it, is, learning to know yourself and your own capabilities. Going back to focusing on your strengths. I'm playing in a league right now that is only evolved around my strengths and nothing else. That is my own league is and that's why it's so unique to myself is because anything that's out of my league, I've delegated to somebody else on our team. And so, know, my biggest thing is I've I've learned myself and I've learned what I'm good at and what I'm not good at. I've learned to trust my gut. And then I've focused on my strengths and I've found ways to be successful only using my strengths as much as possible, which for me, like, I feel like I'm a decent communicator. I know how to communicate with people. And then I'm also driven as well. So I just find a niche that I'm good at and I focused on that. And that's what I've done for my entire business is I've only focused on my strengths and everything that I wasn't good at. I found people that could fill in those gaps on my team. So I don't look at myself as a business owner to the company. I look at myself as I'm just another team member on this team that's helped pushing it forward. I have my own job role just as they have their job roles too. So I'm no better than anybody else in my organization. I'm just another player on the team. That's all.
Right. And you're playing your role by playing your strengths and putting everyone else in their positions of strengths and just keeping it simple in that
Correct.
that that way. I love that. And so my final
Right.
question of the day is like, what would your final pieces of advice be for those that are listening to the podcast that have played sports before and are wanting to continue to develop, and whether it's building a business or just building a career and sustainable life for themselves, to just continue to pursue.
Yeah. Um, Starts with your health. You know, I I've seen a huge increase in my production as a human being in my family life, my business, my relationships when I've gotten in the gym and I've started to eat healthier, And one of the things, and that applies all across the board. For me as a business owner, it's helped kind of meditate me a little bit when things get stressful. Um, it When I went to college to play baseball, switching the perspective to a young athlete, if I went to college to play baseball, I recognized very quickly that I was behind the eight ball as far as my strength goes. That was another reason why I stopped playing baseball was because I wasn't physically capable to compete at that level yet. And in order for me to get to that level was going to take me another 3 to 4 years to build up that strength. So, um, for any young player that does want to be successful, getting in the gym and training as soon as possible. If you don't know a way, find a way. There's YouTube and books on that. It'll change your life as an athlete. You'll be able to perform more, and when you get into and you're going to build those core values, and when you get into the workforce, you're going to be even more successful because you're gonna look good, you're gonna feel good, and you're gonna perform really well. So the gym's changed my life completely.
I think that's a great last piece of advice, and it kind of touches on one of your first points and just like reiterates, even when you are a business player, right, business athlete on after your athletic career, right, those, little intangible things like staying healthy, being in the gym, still make a big positive impact on your life way after. So I really appreciate your time, you sharing all your wisdom today. Like I said to you, I'm very proud, right? We got a lot of great guys on that team. just to be 23 and, have a $1 million, business is really impressive. So thank you for sharing your wisdom on this podcast.
Yeah.
If people, want to reach out to you, I know you're busy, but what's a good place where they can learn more about you, more about your business, and connect with you?
Yeah, they can Facebook us, or like if they want to learn more about us, they can Facebook and go on our website, Your Local Mow Man, Your Local MOWMAN, and then my Instagram is GEEZUNIGA, and I'm more than happy to talk to anybody, any of your viewers that need some advice or whatnot. I don't have a whole lot of free time, but when I get around to it, I like to give people that courtesy. So.
Absolutely. Well, I appreciate your time today, Gmo. This is a great episode.
Yeah. Thanks, Justin. Have a great one.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Bridging Impact Podcast. We'd love it if you would like, subscribe, leave a comment and a review on whatever platform you're on. It's the best way to help us grow. We appreciate you for doing that. We'll shout you out on social media. I'd also love if you connected with me on social media. Let me know your thoughts. And this is why I do it. I want to share knowledge and wisdom from experienced leaders to people like yourself and myself, so we can have this dialogue and move forward, make an impact on the world. So stay tuned, stay subscribed. Cheers.